This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize the headlines that you may have missed this morning. And we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 28th of January 2022, and I am DK.
I am AX.
And I am GK.
Yes.
In case you missed the headlines, here they are. We begin with the Daily Nation. Uhuru throws race wide open. Then we go to the Standard. Hot contest for running mates gathers steam. The Star, ANC left a shell after Raila raids Mudavadi. And the People Daily, all set for battle of the coalitions. So what do you guys think about today's headlines?
Oh yeah, I like all the headlines, but particularly I'm impressed by the Daily Nation. Uhuru throws race wide open. And one thing we keep saying here is that Uhuru Kenyatta, or President Uhuru Kenyatta, has refused to become a lame duck president. And maybe AX, you want to explain the aspect of lame duck presidency?
With pleasure. So a lame duck president is this condition that typically seizes presidents or world leaders at their last year in office. The reason being is because they're leaving, parliament doesn't want to listen to them, governments don't really want to do their thing, their cabinet doesn't really want to listen to them, because after all, the president is leaving, administration is changing. And as a result of basically government coming to a standstill, the president is cut off at the knees. He's unable to do the things he needs to do as our leader. And what I find really fantastic about the Daily Nation is that it too has refused to accept this myth that President Kenyatta is a lame duck president. Absolutely refused it.
In fact, it's the opposite.
Yes.
Instead of lame duck president, I think the president has decided that he's going to finish his term strong.
And he is doing it.
And he is doing that. So, before we gather through the headlines, let me give you guys the criteria that we always have to judge the headlines for you, where we ask ourselves 3 questions. Number 1, is the headline topical or speculative? Then, is it repetitive or groundbreaking? Finally, is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? So, I love the sentiment of the Star, but I think it's not necessarily groundbreaking. So, I'm thinking, do we just give it to the Daily Nation?
I'm thinking, the Daily Nation.
Okay, DK, you can toss the rest.
You're finishing strong, boy.
The Daily Nation has our winning headline. And today I would like to begin by giving everybody a story from the Bible. Once upon a time, in the kingdom of Israel lived the man Samson. Samson was born with his destiny already etched in history. He was born to save the Israelites from the Philistines. The Bible says that God blessed Samson with superhuman strength. No matter what scheme his enemies would invent to kill him, he would simply just shrug it off. There were no match for his God-given strength. Then Samson married a girl from the enemy camp called Delilah. And that is the problem with men. Once the Philistines heard this, they went to Delilah and asked her to betray Samson and lure him into showing her the secret of his great strength. She agreed, signed the contract, and took the money. Then, because men are not generally clever, Delilah went to Samson and asked him to reveal the source of his strength. Samson replied that if anyone ties him with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, he would become as weak as any other man. Delilah reported her findings, but when the Philistines tried to capture Samson, they failed. He snapped the bowstrings easily and defeated them. It was not the source of his strength. And so Delilah went to Samson once again. She told Samson that he had lied to her and he should give her the real answer. After all, he could trust her. And so Samson told her, if one would tie him with new ropes that have never been used, he would become as weak as any other man. It is written in the Bible. It is the lies of women. Delighted with the answer, Delilah and the Philistines tried again. But once more, they failed. So she went to Samson again. This time, he told her that if you weave the 7 braids of his head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with a pin, he would become as weak as any other man. He was lying. Delilah and the Philistines tried again and again. Samson easily beat them. Delilah came to Samson once more, and this time convinced that he could trust her. Samson told her the truth. The source of his strength was his hair, which had never been cut. And that is the problem with men, trusting women after they have tricked you over and over again. Samson had never encountered defeat, and he did not imagine that it would come from an attractive woman. That night, Delilah cut Samson's hair, and he was finally captured. Immediately, the Philistines began to celebrate. They had captured the great Samson. They tied him up, gouged out his eyes, and even organized a party to parade the weak Samson to the masses. He was tied between two pillars and mocked by the Philistines. But they did not notice that his hair was beginning to grow again. And in one final act of heroism, Samson gathered all his strength from his growing locks and killed everybody in the UDA temple, including himself. It was suicide. Dear William RUTO, God created you with a unique type of strength, but you have invited a Delilah into your house. That Delilah is the Kikuyu women politicians. They are Delilahs. They have looked for you strength from the day that they walked into Karen and into Weston. And like Samson, they know that you have never lost a political battle. But now, they know the source of your strength. They will have you captured and your eyes removed. But in the end, you will have the last laugh. Your hair will grow back and end your useless political life with all Kikuyus who join UDA. It is called the Samsonian option. Simply political suicide.
I love movies. And one of the movies I'd love to recommend to Kenyans during this election period is a movie called Helena Troy. It is about the fight between the Spartans and the Greeks, but my best part speaks to what every analyst calls an Achilles heel. Let me explain what this means. Once upon a time in ancient Greece, a boy named Achilles was born to an immortal mother and a mortal father. Before he was born, a prophet had predicted that he would go on to be a great warrior, nearly unbeatable in battle. Yet unfortunately for him, he took after his father and was born immortal. This meant that unlike his mother, Achilles could die. And if Achilles can die, then how would he go on to fulfill his destiny? So wanting the best for her son, Achilles' mother takes him to the realm of the gods. In this realm, there is a river called the River Styx that runs through the entire area. It was said to grant great powers to mortal men. So Achilles' mother took Achilles by the heel and dipped him in that river. Immediately, Achilles' entire body began to glow with the power of immortality, all except the heel his mother had used to dip him into the river. His heel remained untouched by the water and was the only mortal part of his body. This meant that a strike there would kill him. As he grew, Achilles developed into the fantastic fighter and brilliant military commander that the prophet predicted he would be. But he also grew overconfident and arrogant. He became reckless in battle, believing that no one could strike his heel, the only mortal part of his body. Eventually, he stopped protecting that part of his body altogether, and one day in battle, this recklessness would kill him. While engaged with a soldier, another drew an arrow aimed at his heel, an impossible shot. But the arrow hit its target and struck Achilles' heel, and soon he died. Here is where the legend ends for us, but begins for you, Mr. RUTO. Like Achilles, you were dipped in the 2013 and 2017 election rivers by your heel. You were bathed in the strength of a unified Gemma-Kalenjin voting bloc. And until recently, you carried that strength with you into the 2022 elections. Except you forgot that not all of you was dipped. The voting bloc you rely on did not fully clothe you. Put simply, Gemma is your Achilles heel. History teaches us that in elections when Gema is not fielding a candidate, not only is voter turnout low, but Gema will not vote as a unified bloc. 2/3 will go one way and 1/3 will go the other. Meanwhile, you, Mr. RUTO, need at least 3 out of every 4 Gemarites to vote for you, a reality that is inconsistent with history. Perhaps this is why you have tried and failed to summit the mountain, to consolidate the bloc. Or does history explain why we see Gema bit by bit rejecting you like a virus? You see, when you selected Mudavadi as a coalition partner, you thought that you were breaking up a rival. But instead, you were aiming the arrow that would strike your own heel. And now, Mr. RUTO, that arrow has been released, and it will strike your heel before August 2022.
A young mother entered a toy shop. She picked one of the toys and she was intrigued. Then she asked the salesman, "Isn't this toy too complicated for a small child?" To this the salesman replied, "It is an educational toy. It is designed to adjust the mind of the child to the weirdness of the world. Whichever way the child puts it together, it is wrong." And this, ladies and gentlemen, is our constitution for you. Whichever way you put it together, it is wrong. And maybe it was designed as an educational toy to teach us how weird politics is. William RUTO is a man in dilemma. The acquisition of Musalia Mudavadi was celebrated, yes, but it has constipated RUTO's presidential bid. That is why UDA is unable to pass wind. For every step forward, he makes 3 steps backwards. And in our view, BBI was a gift from God to William RUTO. By proposing to expand the executive, Uhuru had placed William RUTO in front of the 2022 goalpost without a goalkeeper. All RUTO had to do was to kick the ball and become president. With the BBI, Uhuru had given RUTO 350 degrees. All RUTO needed to do was 10 degrees to complete his presidential circle. However, without the BBI, everything that RUTO will do in 2022 will be wrong. He will acquire Mudavadi on one hand, then lose Kikuyus on the other hand. And because he failed to amend the weirdness of the Constitution, its absurdity will continue to boomerang onto his political face. Like the child with a weird toy, no matter what RUTO does, he will be wrong. In the meantime, Baba is gaining ground with little effort. And if Gema is yielding to the romancing of Raila Amolo Odinga, it is because Baba has embraced the weirdness of our constitution. That is how Raila will become president, and RUTO will waste his time trying to fix a weird toy called politics.
So basically, DK, what you're saying is people better get on board to this Azimio thing.
Yes.
Haraka.
Faster.
So, before we conclude, I'd like to leave you with a quote. But before we do so, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that like button. We're also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang, Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. So I'll leave you this weekend with a quote that we here at the Fort Hall School of Government love. And it says this: "The problem with being overconfident is that it makes you oblivious to danger." I wonder who that's directed to. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be here with you next week.
Have a great weekend.
Enjoy.